Okay. I'd like to call the June 6, 2022 meeting of the City Council for the City of Lake City to order. Everyone would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings. We ask for your guidance in our deliberations tonight, that what we do is pleasing to you and for the betterment of our community. We ask you to look after our citizens and our troops and our first responders. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Jefferson.
Here.
Mr. Sampson.
Here.
Mayor Witt.
Here.
Mr. Coverline.
Here.
Mr. Dial.
Here.
Chief Butler.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lake City Council has opened its public meeting since 1968. The city code has prohibited any person from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous while addressing the city council. Yelling or making audible comments from the audience constitutes boisterous conduct. Such conduct will not be tolerated. There is only one approved manner of addressing the city council. That is to be recognized and then speak from the podium. As a reminder, persons are not to openly carry a handgun or carry a concealed weapon or firearm by the governing body in meeting. I was also asked to read this. The police department will begin conducting weapons screenings upon all persons attending city council meetings. This includes all city employees, elected officials, with the exception of being law enforcement officers having official business at the meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that Florida State Statute 790.06 subsection 12A7 prohibits the open carrying of handgun or the concealed carry of a weapon or firearm into any meeting of the governing body of a county, public school, district, municipality, or special district. These screenings will begin at the Tuesday, June 21st, 2022 City Council meeting. The screenings will be conducted by having persons walk through a metal detector or be wanded by a handheld metal detector. All items you wish to accompany you will also be checked for weapons. You will not be required to identify yourself or what business you have at the meeting during the screening process. Any person not clearing the screening will not be allowed to enter the council chambers. Okay, no proclamations, minutes. We have May the 16th, 2022 regular session.
Mayor, move to approve the minutes as published.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the minutes as published. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is approval of the agenda. I don't know of any changes.
So move, Mayor.
Second.
Second. Motion is second to approve the agenda as published. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, citizens encouraged to participate, so we have a few signed up. You want to speak? Did they? Okay. The first one I have is Claremont Ashley.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to remind everybody the time limit is 3 minutes, and we want to ask everybody to observe that if they would, please.
Right.
Aye.
I am a new citizen here in Lake City. Came from the county of Orange County in Orlando, Florida, in the wife, and since December. Wanted to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and come to a more quiet area, which it has been. Have just been asked today to join in asking that in our community, there's individuals who would like to build multiple housings in this vicinity, in this neighborhood. What I know personally from that happening from Orlando is that when that happened, when the city allowed it to go commercial along with residential, it displaced a lot of the people there. So the fabric of the neighborhood became more of a business environment, which it brought a lot of problematic things to the neighborhood. People's been forced to move out. just the whole atmosphere has changed, and it's terrible for a small neighborhood, which I was from in Orlando. It's a small neighborhood, but it's been made to be humongous. And I can only imagine what it would be like in a smaller town like Lake City, in a smaller community like Lake City, for this to be allowed to happen. We're gonna be changing the zones, and it's gonna be multiple apartments and condos, whatever that owner wants to build in there. It's gonna be very problematic for the neighborhood and the staple of the people of their neighborhoods. So I'm against it.
Okay. Do you know if it's gone to the zoning board yet?
What my understanding is it will be. Today is just to bring forth that we are against that, the proposals that's gonna be up and coming. This is, like I said, I'm finding this out today, right now, but I think tomorrow.
Planning and zoning meets tomorrow.
Yes, sir. So, my understanding was we can address,
Sure.
okay, and that's all I wanted to address.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next is, Barbara Perry.
As stated, I'm Barbara Mizell Perry, and I'd like to address the same issue that he just mentioned, is that the public notice on display states that it's a request to have the zoning change over in the Arline Thompson subdivision from single-family residency to multiple-family residency, and the residents do not wish to have that. It would bring a lot more noise for them to, the person is proposing to put 6 duplex units on like an acre and a half of land. Anywhere people are bunched up together, it's not gonna be a good thing for people who already own their homes. And so we are against that also. So we're, number one, against the rezoning of that area from single family, which people have purchased their home and their land, and they've moved into a single family residence and they wish for it to stay that way. It's a very nice neighborhood. And also the second thing is there's a draining issue, and I saw the paperwork that's been prepared to be submitted to the zoning committee for tomorrow night, saying there are no water issues. Well, that's not the truth. If you were to go there right now, it hadn't rained that much in the last couple of days, you could wade through the ditch and it would be up to my knees. Now granted, I'm only 4'11", but it would be up to my knees. That's how much standing water there is, and it hasn't even rained very much. So there's quite a drainage issue on that end. And that's also in the issue of town where they're building the roundabout on 441 North. So even if you didn't drive in the Arline Thompson subdivision, you could just pass by 441 North on your way to White Springs and look over there where that roundabout is being started. And you can see how wet the land is with very little rain. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Crescenda Bird.
Good evening. I'm gonna be quick. My name is Christina Bird. I also live in the same subdivision. Me and my husband bought our house there about a year and a half ago. And pretty much same thing they just said. I'm also like against the, I'm also against it being turned from single family to multiple family. Yeah, like the noise, and we just rather keep it the same family. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Linda Andrews.
Good evening. My name is Linda Andrews. I live at 366 Southwest St. John Street. I moved to Lake City in 1998. I was employed by the city for 13 years. I have seen city managers come and go with a special interest as an employee and as a property owner. Right now, the candidates available for the city manager position are pretty poor, in my opinion. We have an excellent interim city manager in Mr. Dial. He has been with the city for over 10 years. He has an engineering degree and vast experience in utilities, which is a large investment area for the city and a large revenue area for the city. We have been filling our positions with fine people from within the city. And we have a new human resources director. I recommend that Mr. Collins and Mr. Dial find us an assistant city manager. Where am I? After reading an article in the Lake City Reporter about the police department's law enforcement sponsorship program, in which the department takes candidates who are interested in a career with them and brings them along, letting them see this field, this city, this career, if it's right for them. It also lets the department see and learn if these candidates are right for the city, their fellow officers, and our citizens. Let's let Mr. Collins and Mr. Dial find us a person who has the academic qualifications for the city manager position, the personality and the interest in becoming our future city manager. He or she should have related background experience in different fields. Let Mr. Dial bring this person along, see if they are right for our citizens, our employees, our city departments, and our city activities. Let the city council come to see and know this person. Let the person have experience with the city and this career to see if it's right for him or her. Right now, there are 1,240 registered voters in District 14 who have no voice on the city council. Perhaps this has been a God thing that you have not been able to find a city manager. Let's take a different avenue. Let's grow our own future city manager. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that's all I have signed up to speak at this time. It wasn't at this time. Okay, next is approval of the consent agenda.
Mayor, move for the approval of consent agenda is published.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent agenda is published. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no presentations, ordinances. We are to open a public hearing on city council ordinance number 2022-2224. On final read, Mr. Coberline, will you read that by title?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending the city code to add a new section number 86-110.17 to Article 3, Chapter 86, which provides for the permanent vacating of portions of the right-of-way for parcels 02465-106 and 107 and 115, as identified by the parcel identification number assigned by the property appraiser's office. All said lots being located in the Stonegate Park subdivision as recorded on a plat thereof and recorded in Plat Book 7, pages 61 and 62 of the public records of Columbia County, Florida, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date period.
Anybody in the audience wish to speak for or against this ordinance? If not, then we'll close the public hearing, move into adoption of city council ordinance number 2022-2224.
Mayor, I move for the adoption of ordinance number 2022-2224 on its final reading.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Ms. Ox, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Winn?
Yes. Okay, items 5 and 6 are the same as every week. Fire pension board and police officers pension board, we need to get somebody on there. Next, we have discussion possible action city manager position. I think we have Ms. Narlock here. Did Mr. Warren want to speak before?
Mr. Mayor, if it please you and the council, I would like to speak after Ms. Norlock, and there may be a possibility of what Ms. Norlock said, it may not be a need for me to speak.
Okay, how about Mr. Bowden?
Same thing.
Okay, if we can get Ms. Narlock up.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, council members. I'm here. I'm not sure that you have video yet.
Okay, we can't hardly hear you. Get the sound up some.
Testing?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. I'm not sure if you have a video on me, if you need it, but
We do.
I'll go ahead and, okay. All right, great. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to meet with you again tonight. As you know, we've been sending some information to you as we go. We sent a document probably late last week with 3 candidates that I'd like to talk to you about this evening. We have been keeping you updated weekly on our progress, any new applications that we received. We did have some conversations with a couple of additional candidates. We sort of walked them through the process, shared with them what you're looking for, shared with them information that they needed to assess the opportunity, and they did decide when all was said and done that the timing was not right for them. And that's fine. We want, if it's not right, it's not right. We don't want them to come and then leave too soon. So we have been talking to other candidates, but any candidate who actually applies, we do forward the application to you, Mayor, and to the council members. And I think we CC Audrey on that so she can include it, or if anybody makes a records request. I'd just like to take a minute, Mayor, if I may, to recap what I was told by council at the onset of this process and the way of what you are looking for, what we need to be looking for in the way of recruitment. The requirements for the position were outlined as a bachelor's degree in public or business administration or a closely related field, along with 10 years of executive level municipal or corporate management experience, or an equivalent combination of training and experience. Experience in growth management, economic development, utilities, budgeting, strategic planning, and performance management would be viewed as a plus. In addition to that, some of the things that were shared again by each of you that were important to the city is that someone that is professional, accountable, honest, a person of integrity that will advocate for staff and promote training and staff development, as well as the ability to influence the agency's overall culture and morale. Also someone who could build rapport and trust, build relationships with the community, with stakeholders, including participating in community activities and civic engagement was important. As far as their personal attributes, someone who's personable, accessible, transparent, inclusive, and fosters an open dialogue would be welcomed in the city. The city manager would be tasked to take a fresh look at the agency to assess its overall effectiveness and bring it forward in areas where needed. The city was looking for a sound approach to performance management, best practices, and strategic planning was important. There were a few other things such as spearheading projects and things like that that were very important, project management skills, negotiating skills for contracts and what have you. But I think primarily what stood out to me at the time was discussions about connecting with the community, discussions about some knowledge about utilities in order to continue some of the growth that was happening out near the airport at the time. And of course, now you are expanding and developing, supporting development out there by putting utilities out that way. And that was an economic generator for the city, continues to be that. And that was something that council members seemed to be interested in, someone that could help support that role. So I just wanted to circle back around just to remind me of what we're looking for, and then also just share that with others that may want to know what we actually, the conversations that we actually had on the front end. That said, Mayor, if you're okay, if there's no questions or objections, I'm going to talk about 3 candidates that their information was sent to you most recently.
Okay.
And if you're okay with that, I'll go ahead and go and start. I'm sorry I can't see you, so I'll just need to get a verbal okay.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm going to start with Mr. Hyatt. They were listed in alphabetical order, and apparently we have a couple of them out of order. But since Mr. Hyatt is listed first, I'd like to talk to him first. I want to point out that he is an ICMA credentialed manager. He gained that credentialing in 2019, and I can't underscore that enough of how valuable that is. It's certainly not something that I would recommend someone based on them having it or not, but if they do have it, I really like to point it out. It takes a lot of time, a lot of education, a lot of training, probably a lot of money, and really a lot of dedication over their career in order for someone to obtain an ICMA credentialing. And it's really a commitment to the profession. And I have found that managers that have that credentialing are very professional. They're very prepared to take on different challenges in communities. So I wanted to point that out to begin with. You will notice that Mr. Hyatt has his Master's of Public Administration from University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, as well as a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science. He originally grew up in Tennessee. His wife is from Jacksonville. And as you'll see from his career track, he ended up going to the city of Jacksonville and worked there for some time. And then a colleague of his contacted him about some work in Deerfield Beach, looking for a grants administrator. He had no experience in grants at the time that he took the job, but he had someone who knew him and knew his work ethic and brought him in to a very diverse community, predominantly a Black community, predominantly low income. And he got hired there, and things were going very well there. And his father got sick back in Tennessee, and the family felt there was a need to move there and help with his care. And so he took his first city manager's job in Tennessee. It was a small town, but it was full service, fire, police, sanitation, probably about 2,500 people. He said it, in his opinion, it was a good place to cut his teeth. But of course, only so much you can do in a small community of that size. So he got another opportunity and moved up to a larger community, about 7,500 people. And then an opportunity came that would actually put him even closer to his mother at the time. His father had passed away and she needed some care at that time. So he took a job in East Ridge, which was about 21,000 population. And things were going well, and his wife and kids decided they wanted to go back to the Jacksonville area. And Neptune Beach came open. They were happy in Tennessee and things were going well. It was just a pull to come back to the Jacksonville area. So his wife and his daughter joined him, and his wife actually works at a university in Jacksonville, and his daughter went there to get her nursing degree. His wife is, I believe, and I'll share with this in just a minute, actually over the nursing program at one of the universities in Jacksonville. She's pretty ingrained there now. So while he was in Jacksonville, there was Neptune Beach, there was one of the council members that started an organization, the K9 for Warriors organization, and asked him if he would be the executive director. He agreed to do that and moved to, his task was to move to San Antonio and establish the organization there. And he did do that. He took it. His family was going to follow him to San Antonio soon after he took the job, and COVID hit. And because no one knew in 2020 what was really going to be happening, he went ahead and resigned from that position. Just could not get traction under the circumstances. And so he remained unemployed for a short time. As he said, he was fortunate to get back into the state of Florida when Surfside came up. There were some other offers on the table, but he decided that he wanted to go to Surfside. It's further south from Lake City. And as you may recall, it's the community that 98 citizens perished there when a major building condominium collapsed. And he's been there about 18 months. His wife is still in Jacksonville. They have decided it's just time for him to come back to the Jacksonville area. And so when he saw Lake City open up, I'll say a second time, or continue to stay open, he talked with his wife about it. He talked with some people at FCCMA, some of the leaders there about it. And he decided that, he thinks this is a good move for him career-wise. It would enable him to do what he loves doing, and it would get him back to a region where he knows he's coming back to the region. His oldest son, I believe he said, his oldest child lives in Paris. His other child is finishing up her nursing degree, or his nursing degree, soon, and his daughter is 20 years old now. So they have some flexibility to choose where they go and where they want to stay from this point on in their career. He did talk about when they moved to San Antonio, they sold their residence in Jacksonville area and did not buy again. So they're in a situation where they could buy a residence in Lake City. And he talked about that. Someone said he and his wife have talked about that. The city of Surfside has 133 total employees. The largest employees that he's had is probably East Ridge, Tennessee, with probably about 140. Where he is now, they don't have water or wastewater. He's had those elsewhere. They don't have fire. They contract with Miami-Dade County for fire, and they do have police there. He reports to a town commission. There's 5 members, and they get elected every 2 years. And I believe they earn $1 per year as their salary, which I think that's an interesting detail. That said, he talked about how he likes to use a participative management style, a team approach to things. He likes to empower employees, empower the department directors, recognize them as experts in their field, and just really be very supportive of them. He also sees employees as being very valuable in the sense that they are eyes on the community. They're out there, they're hearing things, they're seeing things. And he just sees that as a huge resource for the city, that the employees can be the eyes and ears of things that need to be addressed or things that come up during the day. Excuse me just a moment, I'm sorry. When he went to Surfside, he said it was a little tenuous there, that the employees were pretty stressed, pretty, had some morale issues going on. They were getting I'll say beat up a little bit, publicly speaking, and really needed someone to come in and be the leadership to help buffer them as needed and be an advocate for them. He said he believes that has greatly improved since he's been there. He incorporated self-evaluations where employees evaluate themselves. And it's not just the supervisor evaluating them. Again, it's to empower them. When I asked if there was any areas that he felt like he didn't have experience in or that he had to come up to speed on, he said no, other than the airport, that he's basically in all of his different roles. He's had the other areas, but the airport, he's not had that yet. Short-term and long-term career goals. He said that he's done his homework. He's checked you out. He's been watching your meetings. Of course, he's familiar with you from proximity of Jacksonville. And he said he would just focus on how he could help improve things in Lake City, that he would be listening. He would get clear direction from you as council on what he needs to be focused on and what initiatives he needs to be carrying out, and really just look to you for how he can best help. He likes to sit with electeds when he comes in and just find out, especially because you all been there a long time, you've grown up there, you know the organization, you know the community, and really anything he does is based on the directives that the council gives him. That said, he's not looking to go anywhere else after Lake City. He would like to come and stay and help the city achieve its potential and its goals. Talked more about the airport and how that intrigues him as an economic development tool. Feels like he has more to give. Loves the location. This gets him in proximity. He said his family is not leaving Jacksonville. That is where, meaning the region, that is where they have extended family, they have friends, they have relationships that they've made. His wife is still engaged in her role at the college or the university. And he said they've been married nearly 31 years. They're empty nesters, that he's often coming home from Surfside. And he just feels like that this is just a great opportunity for not only him, but for the city of Lake City. he and his wife had talked about it. Again, I think I mentioned to you about that they would look at purchasing a home and could do that in Lake City. Outside of that, nothing in his background that causes me concerns. With that, I'm going to jump right into talking about John Hanna. And John is, as far as his education, he has his Master's of Engineering, Civil Engineering, Water Resources from USC, University of South Carolina, Columbia, Bachelor's of Science, Civil Engineering from North Carolina State University. John is interested in coming to Florida in general. His 2 adult children, his daughter lives in Tampa now. She's put down roots there. She's going to be there for quite some time. And his son, who is at the University of Alabama, wants to relocate to the Tampa area. That's really John's incentive for coming to Florida. Aside from this part, the fact he likes Florida, he mentioned that, you know, as a lot of people do now, that he feels like we have good governance in Florida. He feels like we're just a strong state in a lot of areas, and you know, COVID gave us a reputation, I guess. And he mentioned some of those things that were important to him. He has strong family ties. He did mention that he lost an adult child not long ago, and that he's sort of gone through a process of reestablishing priorities. And for where his adult children are now in life, he is going to be closer to them. So this position would afford him closer proximity to them. But he also talked about just the challenges of Lake City. He's got a utilities background. He's got an engineering background. But as you'll see, he's pretty much been a leader in every position that he's held, whether it was with a consulting firm or even with a utilities district that he's with now. I think the upside is not only John's leadership skills, but also his management style, and quite frankly, his utilities experience. Utilities are a big deal to Lake City. And I think just understanding that world and all that goes on in that world could be a benefit to the city long-term, and even help the city with some of the challenges that it's currently going through. As I mentioned, he's had a lot of experience. He did a lot of development work in Chapel Hill when he first got out of school. He was a project engineer, quickly moved to project management, oversaw 15 or so staff persons, but more people from a contractor's perspective, a lot of engineers, a lot of people who were subcontracted on different projects and what have you. They did ask him to open an office in Charlotte and run it. He did that for a while, and a firm in Rock Hill reached out and recruited him. The work there at that firm was primarily for municipalities, special districts, and counties, public sector work. He was there about 5 years, and then he met someone who recruited him to take his place at an engineering firm in Illinois that did mostly industrial work. It was multidiscipline, high-end type of work. He did that for a while, but he didn't really enjoy the industrial engineering type of work. You know, it was more doing drawings and coordinating construction of the work and stuff like that. So he got recruited to another firm, and he was a principal there. He worked there for quite some time, had great relationships, opened a branch in Charlotte. He was there, I think, for probably, he was there for, I think, 7 years. And then they wanted him to make a move somewhere else and do some more expansion. And he decided at that point to start his own business. He did his own business for about 10 years. At that point, it was when the economy got fairly bad, 2010, I think. And then he talked about the need of one of his children that needed some very close attention, medically speaking. And it was just where he needed to make a decision on how to best take care of that child. So there was a stop there for a short time, and then that's when he got the opportunity down in Ocean Springs. He's just said he is ready to transition to a leadership role in a small municipality. He's not trying to go for a big city or a big county, but that he does, feel like he is qualified and ready to make that transition. He mentioned that he got his job in Mississippi the day he interviewed, they offered him the job same day. He's had other opportunities, but he stayed there for quite some time. So this is the time for him to make a transition, and the transition he wants to make is to a local government in a leadership role, and preferably in the state of Florida. He has 5 board members where he is, appointed by County Board of Supervisors, changes on a regular basis, and has had some that were very engaged and some that were not as engaged, but all have been supportive of him. And I believe he has had he has another board, a different kind of board with 7 different members on it. And I'm sorry, the name of that board. But nevertheless, he knows how to work closely with elected officials and appointed officials. Let's see if there's anything else I'd like to share about him. I do think master planning is one of his strengths. Excuse me. I think utilities is one of his strengths, and I think leadership and developing relationships is one of his strengths. He talked about how he spends a lot of time coaching, likes to bring people along, likes to see them grow. He is not afraid to make a decision. He doesn't micromanage. He has a good feel for when to step in, and a good feel for when not to. He underscored that he genuinely cares about people and respects employees and wants them to know and believe that and feel that as part of the organization. I believe the organization that he is in used to be multiple utilities, and then they came together under one umbrella at some point prior to him coming there. So it covers a large territory. But he did talk about in his career that he's done a lot of parks and rec work, a lot of engineering, design type work. He's chaired planning commissions. He's chaired board of adjustments. He's been on an airport commission. So he's had some additional responsibilities outside his role as executive director. He is looking for a more rural area. Where he is right now is rural in a sense, and he likes that. He did talk about being in the South. He wants to stay in the South. He thought that the state of Florida would be a good place for him. He likes what he sees going on in Florida. There are no roadblocks to him accepting the position. Mr. Mel Smigelski, is the last candidate that I want to mention. He also is a credential manager. I should say was a credential manager from 2016 to 2019. It would not be difficult for him to regain his credentialing status. But I'll talk to you a little bit about that as we go. He started out in some really small communities. He was a city clerk because they're in a town that he started in early in his career because there was not a city manager role. They didn't have zoning at the time. This was his hometown, and he decided to try to help him out. So he got involved in different things. They had no HR director, so he had to do that too. But he talked about that time in his career, about how tremendous of a learning experience that was for him, because he was doing everything. And obviously he grew in that field and felt he could do more, wanted to actually become a manager or an administrator. And so he went to Spring Green, Wisconsin. He moved from what he considered a semi-moderate climate to a very cold climate. Family was not happy about that. The snow did not suit them well, so they did that for 4 years. And it was a very small town, limited resources. He instituted quite a few things there. They didn't have a records management system when he got there. He did the treasury duties when he got there. He took care of zoning. And then after a time period, he decided to look for a larger community. He went north to Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. He did that for a couple years and then wanted to be closer to his family in Southern Illinois. And so he took a job there. It was a full service city. They did have a full-time city clerk and treasurer, so he didn't have to do that. And they were going through a growth spurt. So he helped with zoning, a lot of things going on there that he was able to implement and be involved with. And then he had to make a decision he had in-laws that were in Leesburg, Florida. And he knew that area. He considered going to that area. His kids had left. It was just time to make a move to Florida. So he looked around, and Leesburg wasn't hiring, and the opportunity that manifested first was Mexico Beach, which put him about 5 hours drive from Leesburg. And so, he was familiar with it. He'd been around that area when he was a kid. And he went there, he went to Mexico Beach. And he was there for about 4 years. There, the mayor was a very strong figure. It was not a strong mayor form of government, but I guess in reality it was. There were several hiring and firing decisions that the mayor really wanted to happen and put pressure on him. But he managed all of that, and he said things were stable, things were going along well. But he kind of felt that he needed to make a shift. And so he decided that he would go to take a job over in Defuniak. And Defuniak had a lot of problems when he got there. It had a grand jury had handed down a consent decree, as I understand it, to Defuniak. Their audits were late, so the state took money away from them. It was a mess, generally speaking. And he came in, hired some people, got the right people. He knocked everything off the grand jury's list one by one. Things were stable. And after about, I think, 18 months there, if I'm not mistaken, he decided that he'd been doing this for 30 years and he wanted to retire. His wife is a teacher. She's in the system in Mexico Beach area. And so he decided he would retire. She would still work. Turns out, he said once he did that, that he was very bored and felt like he was just not cut out for it. So he looked around, and he hasn't applied anywhere else. I think he was retired about a year, and he saw Lake City pop on the radar. He's familiar with Lake City from his travels and from being in Florida back in the days when he would go to Daytona and he'd go to Leesburg and other places. But he decided that it was certainly something that he wanted to be considered for. As far as size of organizations that he's managed, Spring Green only had about 38 employees. North Fond du Lac had 40 to 50. The next city it was around 60. Mexico Beach, probably 30 something, small, very small. Defuniak had about 160 employees. He reported to a city council in Defuniak, and they have police, fire, gas, HR, finance. They pick up their own trash. They do water and sewer there also. As far as his style, again, very inclusive, met with his department heads once a week, hashed out problems, emphasized and underscored that everybody's job at the city is important, and that it's important that employees know what others are doing. It just serves the city best if that information is shared, and that's the reason for having those weekly meetings. He said if you're looking for somebody to come and stay 10 years, he's not sure he's the person. He said it could be, but certainly 5 years is his, I'll say, long-term goal. It's as you know, in these things, it's how things go, right? But he certainly would hope to be there no less than 5 years. It would be a commitment to come in to the city. His wife would not come immediately. She'd have to finish out with her retirement plan with the school district that she's in Mexico Beach. There are no roadblocks to him accepting a position. He he didn't see any problems in that regard whatsoever. When it comes to anything in his background or anything like that, there was nothing that, now, just to make clear you understand this, the place we are in our process is we have done preliminary interviews with these candidates. We have probably done a flyby on their newspaper articles. We have not touched base with these candidates in the last week to see if anything has changed on their end. I'm sure I'll find out when I call to give them a status update of tonight's meeting and tonight's discussion. That said, we still have to, if any of these candidates are going to be considered further, we still have to do video interviews, then decide who you want to bring in for the on-site interview process, which includes meeting with department directors, meeting with each of you one-on-one, doing a group interview open to the community, and also a tour of the community, as well as the meet and greet, so people have a chance to interact with these individuals. We will, at some point, begin to do references, and then soon thereafter, do a background check, which includes not only the background checks that we do, which is a first level background check, as I call it, but also the background check that you do, as well as other things that you would do for onboarding process. So with that said, I don't think there's anything else that I need to add to this information. I do ask you to give me some sort of direction tonight on these particular candidates or any candidates that we've talked about that you would like to consider further. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have about where we are, the process, applications, these candidates, or the direction that we're going in. With that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Any comments by council?
Mr. Mayor, I've got some comments if I'm allowed. So it looks like all these candidates are looking to move into our area for their convenience.
Right.
And I mean, you look at the first one, he applied at Palm Coast less than a year being on the job he's at now, which was probably pretty smart because they just had I think a roughly $2 million settlement go out that the city had to get their insurer to pay. And then you look at the other ones, I mean, yeah, utility experience is nice. That utility is smaller than ours by far. I mean, and then you look at the third one, and of course he's not on a 10-year plan, he's retired. I mean, he's not gonna be on a 10-year plan. I mean, anybody that graduates college in the 70s is probably not looking on a 10-year plan. So once again, the candidates are underwhelming. I would make a motion to terminate Ms. Narlock and Narlock and Associates effective immediately. That would be my motion.
All right, is there a second?
Yes.
I will in a minute.
Well, you know, I've tried to give Ms. Norlock the benefit of the doubt. And again, she hasn't really produced any candidates worth voting for or looking at. So I would second that motion.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna have Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Sylvester Warren. Let me say this, Mayor. We've been at this for a while, and I think we can all agree we've been at this for a while. To sit and listen at the candidates, knowing what we're looking for, I think that even in Ms. Norlock opening statements, or at some point in her statements, she was asking or either mentioning clarification of what we wanted as a city. And to think that any of those candidates would meet what we need is just short of mistaking the whole concept of what we're looking for in a city manager. And we've traveled this road, and I've said this probably a few times. At some point, Ms. Norlock is gonna have to tell us that she's going as far as she can go. She's casting her net as far as she can cast her net. I will say that all the candidates, like Mr. Sampson said, it seems to be more of a thing of convenience, churn moving, family here, family there. But what the city's looking for is somebody to be the captain of the freaking yacht. Move us along, get us some growth going, get us some new development coming in, get us some money, get us some jobs. And none of that, what I sat here and heard for the last 45 minutes, comes close to it. I'm a great taxpayer. A lot of other folks in here are probably great taxpayers. We need something better than that. And I just think we're at a point where we're gonna have to file for divorce. I think the motions that are made and the second that are made, I think that is very timely and I think it's on point. I'm not gonna stand in the way of it. And I do believe that if Ms. Norlock was honest, I'm hearing chatter from different states that there are other candidates that may be suitable and qualified that Ms. Norlock had even given into the fold, that we probably would have a great candidate at this point. I don't know whether or not it is poor management on her end with staff, but nonetheless, I'm aware of at least 2 viable candidates that I've heard that have applied, but their name have not come up on the roster. And that is very, very, very disappointing. So the cut ties may be best. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Biden, do you want to speak at this time?
Mr. Mayor, Glenn Alvaro, 1156 Northeast Baskin Norris Drive. I really don't have anything to add, Mayor, except this, that like Mr. Sampson, I was absolutely impressed. I mean, I sat through all these interviews, either in person or by way of Zoom, and I'm just really disappointed in the 3 candidates that she brought forth tonight. I mean, if there's been a time that the motion was appropriate, after these 3 candidates tonight, it's very appropriate. And I agree with Mr. Warren. I think it's, reached their goal and it's time for us to move on. And we're doing the community this service by continuing with her when we're not getting any result. And sure enough, it may not be her fault, but there's no benefit to our community in keeping her on as the head on. So I think we need to move on or look at another process, get our HR to solicit the application, or get the city manager association, whoever does it, is shortlisted for us, for the city. Then y'all can make a decision of what 10 or what 5 you want to interview. To continue down this road, I think it's a disservice, not only to the citizen, but also a disservice to Mr. Dodd and to the city staff. I can't even imagine the city staff functioning the way they function over these past months without any certainty of leadership. It's a credit to them that they're still doing it. It's a credit to the employees that the city is still functioning, to tell you the real truth. But for the city employees, we'll be like the Trinidad Springs problem. So I agree with the motion. I agree with Mr. Warren's assessment. I do think it's time to move on.
All right, Mr. Holder.
I can't really talk to whether Ms. Norlock is the best candidate research firm because in many ways, through your actions as council members, you failed to deliver to the city. We had a good candidate in Glenn Adams. In fact, we had several good candidates that you failed to negotiate with, and then after the fact, decided that the $160,000 salary or whatever was acceptable to the county or to the city. I think you should consider another firm like Colin Benziger and Associates that you had selected as your second choice. I believe that while he was $8,000 more, that a $60 million a year operation warranted doing a proper research and canvassing for the proper candidate. And he, also based in Florida, has a good consultancy and a good track record for filling high-level municipal elections. I believe that the city is incapable of doing the HR function that's necessary to bring on the talent and to interview the talent and to make sure that the background examinations are done on the talent for you. I don't believe with your broken HR department and your lack of senior management that you have the capacity to hire this level of position by yourself. Please consider using a professional search firm if you're going to cancel this contract. don't try to go it alone. You don't have the better experience and your judgment has lacked in the past. Please make a good decision tonight and hire another firm and start immediately. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have to have a firm because it's just a process that they have to reach out and do a lot of the work that Ms. Norlock's done in background checking and doing that I don't think we can as a council. And so if it's the will of the council to terminate the contract, then I think we got to get somebody else and do the same thing. I'm not in favor of changing it. I think it's not her fault. I think we're just not getting the applications and that's just universal all over the country. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, if we go that route, choose another firm, do we have a feel of what they would do in it differently? I mean, in terms of the search pool than Mr. Norlock? Because they are all utilizing the same pool.
Right.
As I understand it, unless someone has some knowledge that I don't have in reference to the search process. That would be one of my concerns.
Mine too.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
on that point, Mr. Jefferson, I mean, that's a good point. If you go back to when the decision was made to hire Narlock, which I was against from the beginning, and you looked at those packages, you would see the Basinger package, although more expensive, was far more thorough. And the source, if you look at their experience just in general, I think it's not even close. But the thing is, we were in such a rush to make it an emergency to hire a firm that we chose to go that direction. By far, I don't even think it's a comparison. You have certain pools. So when you're hiring a headhunter, they have places they research and get people from. And obviously, Ms. Narlock's pool, we've exhausted everyone in her pool. Basinger, they've been doing it a long time. They're a big organization. At the League of Cities meeting that I went to recently, a lot of people are using them. They're doing a lot of searches. It seems like, we've been at this almost a year. You look at the value on the applications, they're reducing. They're not the same. So I think we got the top of the beginning. We may have messed up with how we negotiated. I'm not sure about that. I think we might have underestimated the value, which again, is something we should have gotten information on from our headhunter, that she should have come in and said, no, you're not in the right price range. But I think now we have an opportunity to fix that and look at a different firm that's more professional and try again. That's my opinion.
Ms. Ash, call the roll, please.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
No.
Mayor Witt?
No.
Mr. Mayor, I think we would need a recess so that some people can think about this, because there's no way we can move forward like this. You look at these 50 applications we've gotten since we last talked, and there's not been one qualified candidate. How can we stay the course? How can this body stay the course when the fact is we're getting a reduced and worse applicant every time? So today we got a guy there was a $900 million settlement. The city wasn't doing their inspections underneath him, and she brought him as the top applicant. How can we trust that she is bringing us the best applicant? And then you got a guy who's retired. And then you got a guy that runs a utility smaller than our utility. We could get Mike Osborne. He's got more experience than that guy. He could run the city then, because that's what she's bringing us. We can't settle for this. This has gone on way too long. Is there any other idea of something we could do?
Well, we could let her keep looking, and if you want to.
That's not working.
Somebody else.
Man, that's not working.
That's not working.
Well, we'll suggest somebody else, and we can hire them.
Is there someone local we could hire, just off the street at this point? I mean, we might be better off. Is there someone at the stoplight? We've picked them up. I mean, because that's where we're headed. It's not like it's hard to tell here. So I've made the motion 3 times. I did finally get a second this time. I'll be making the motion again, I guess, at the next meeting to terminate Ms. Narlock, because it is unacceptable what's going on. In the following motion, once that happens, she needs to pay us back the money, because the contract said 90 days, we're on a year. And so it's gonna get more contentious. So we cannot fire her tonight and let her continue this charade another till the next meeting, and then we can do this again, because this is absolutely unacceptable. that we have allowed this as a group to go on for a year. Consistently, it's been a charade. And I don't think we should quit talking about it. I think we should sit here and talk about this till we can come to some kind of consensus of what we're gonna do. Do you want to interview these three? Was there anybody in those three that you would personally interview?
It wouldn't hurt to interview them, talk to them, I mean.
Which one would you interview out of those three? I'm just curious, because this is why we couldn't get Glenn Adams, because we couldn't get the votes to get him, because, you know, we thought he wasn't qualified, and then you look at these three, and not one of these people could even work for him. I mean, it's on the page. What about your job description where all you say is, see the grand jury report? That's not a good job description for a resume. I've been writing resumes for a long time and would never put something like that on it. I mean, that's the resume. The resume says, look at the grand jury report from 2018. Now, the one thing we have found out about Ms. Narlock is there's a lot of places worse off than Lake City. At least we're not having to say, look at the grand jury report for the last one. At least we're not having to say, oh, look at our nearly $1 billion settlement that we just signed within the last week, and now the guy wants to get close to Jacksonville. No. This is unacceptable. I don't think we should stand for this at all. I think we should make a decision tonight to move forward in a way. Now, I know we're missing that council member, but 2-2 didn't pass. That's correct. But there's got to be some way to move forward where we can do something different. Hell, maybe we should hire a second set and just have two of them working at the same time.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, let's hire Basinger right now. Let's have them working twice.
Oh, you talking about my money now?
But we're gonna get some of that money back because we got one contract that's not been performed on, that we're gonna get paid back on that money at some point. And the way Ms. Narlock's gone about this is the most non-transparent way I've seen. Calling each person individually to poll to see which direction you wanna go, that's not the right way to do this. It should have been out in the open. Go back and read Basinger's report. Go back and look at that report. They were out in the open about what the process should be. This process has been bad from the beginning. So I guess if y'all are gonna settle and sit here, I guess we're gonna sit here and not make a decision again and let it run a full year, and then we can say, hey, we've been a full year going with it. This is, I don't know how y'all can sit here and do that. I'm just confused as to the level of ignorance it takes to allow that to continue.
So what's your suggestion if we terminate the contract?
I'd say terminate her and hire Basinger. They were number two. We had
hire Basinger, and like you said, let both of them work.
Hey, man, listen, man, I'm telling you, we're gonna have a problem coming to that podium. I'm not gonna sit there and let my tax dollars get spent twice for one person. That's nuts. Now, I don't know how you pay for it out your pocket.
Well,
do you have any other thoughts besides having two at one time? See, when we talk to ICMA people.
Sure. That's what I'm not sure about. I agree with Mr. Warren about hiring somebody else at this point. I don't think we're gonna get anybody else.
Well, I think we should hire someone else, but first I think what we do is we take the person we've hired that's not performing and we say, I'm sorry you're not performing. You know, what's that term from the TV show? You're fired. I mean, that's what you do. And then when that's done, then you hire somebody to replace them and say, this is your opportunity to perform. I mean, if she were my employee, she'd been fired a long time ago. You can't provide those kind of results and not be terminated. This is ridiculous. And it's a laughing stock. When you look at people that have looked at the resumes and what she's provided, I mean, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Could I make a motion again to terminate that contract at this meeting, or do I have to wait till the next one, Mr. Attorney?
Be a motion to reconsider, which may be made at the same meeting because there wasn't a prevailing side.
And either side can make it because no one prevailed.
That's correct.
I make a motion to terminate Ms. Narlock's contract again.
So,
All right, Ms. Ox, call the roll.
Mr. Mayor, since we got a new motion, can I speak this?
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, I sit there and I think that this council is forgetting the fact that on this side of that this is public out there. And you represent the people. And I share Mr. Sampson's frustration. It's to the point now that Ms. Norlake started out with some decent candidates, a real district, but she got progressively worse. So how can you sit here, can you, Mr. Mayor, since you voted not to hire her, sit there and think that you're gonna get something better? These three candidates here that you got tonight is the worst of all she ever presented. So what you think, that next 2 weeks from now you're gonna get a golden goose gonna come out. No, it's really time, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'm frustrated as a former city councilman and a lifetime resident of the city of Lake City, and a strong supporter of the city manager form of government. But we're doing a disservice to that process and the way we're handling this. At some point in time, you know, we gotta say, listen, there was a mistake, thank you very much, goodbye, you know. But I just can't see, I'm like Mr. Sampson. You and Mr. Jefferson will need to justify that other than just saying, we can't do any better. Because I can't see an explanation of why after tonight that you would think, Mr. Jefferson and Mr. Mayor, that she gonna bring back somebody better. It don't make no sense to me.
Gotcha. Sergeant, you call it out, please.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
No.
Mayor Witt?
No.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider the item that we just talked about with the termination of Renee Narlock's contract.
What's your motion?
A motion to terminate the contract with Narlock and Associates.
Second.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, just cave. You cave for Be Faithful, cave for this one. Let's take one for, let's go home. Like, you can't stay in a marriage just because you got kids and the marriage ain't working. This contract ain't working, Mayor. And I don't know how I can explain that to Mr. Jefferson, but it ain't working. Like, the majority of the council is saying it's not working. The taxpayers are saying it's not working. At some point, common sense will have to prevail and say, hey, look, Ms. Norlock, I think you're cool peeps, but we got to make a professional decision right here based on the council and based on the public, and you're no longer a fit. And it's nothing bad about that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing sinful or egregious about that. It's like, we've come to a crossroad. And we can't go down this highway together any longer. That's all that we're saying. And so it doesn't put a bad reputation or a bad mark on your resume because you found Ms. Norlock, or you a lawyer and she's a lawyer and you don't want to move in that direction. I mean, I don't know what's restraining you from doing it, but you voted for Ms. Coker. And if you can find the strength to do that, you can't find the strength to find Ms. Norlock. And I'm just using that as an example, and I'm not trying to be mean about using that. I'm just using these things as an example. Like, you made a decision on that, why you can't make a decision on this? We got to do something. And I don't think that Mr. Sampson's going to stop. And when I come at this podium and I'm hell-bent about something that I stand for and I believe in, I don't stop. And if he don't stop, I don't blame him. But something needs to happen today. Like, this needs to stop. And I pray he just keep going all night long if he wants to, and we'll just keep getting uphill until we wear somebody down. This needs to end, man. And you should know that as a leader.
All right. Where were we at?
I need to call roll. He made a motion to reconsider a motion to consider Renee Narlock's contract.
Yes, and so we can have conversation on each of them too each time we
There
do
was
it.
a solution if we do.
Well, I say then I'd say we go with the number 2. When we went back, we had 3 applicants that wanted to do this job. The number 2 one was Basinger, which was by far the best of the 3 if you looked at the full presentation. They were more expensive. They were a little more expensive. But there's a reason that sometimes it's said you get what you pay for. And in this case, we've gotten exactly what we paid for. We got someone that came in under budget, they came in with a good number, and that's what we got. Now, had we been able to close the deal, Mr. Thomas or Mr. Adams, we'd have all been happy. We could all went home with it, but we weren't able to close the deal. So my proposal would be, once we terminate her, that we go and offer it to the number 2, Basinger. Let them get started immediately. We already have that offer in place. I don't know, now that might be a question for Mr. Coberline as to if we would need to do anything to award that, but I mean, there was already a process with 3 bids.
You've already taken action on those bids. If you want to go back and reconsider it, the most expeditious manner would likely be to piggyback if that firm is actually being procured by other government agencies.
What about doing something similar to what we did last time? This one, she was hired as an emergency for COVID. I mean.
That is always an option under your procurement.
So, I mean, I would even see hiring her as an emergency and saying that's an emergency, because it is an emergency. We need to move forward. So I could amend that motion to say terminate Narlock and Associates and hire Basinger based on their bid at the time. And it's an emergency. The emergency is we don't have leadership in place that we need, and that's allowing us not to fill all the positions within the city. I mean, we call it a COVID emergency again. That's fine with me. I mean, it's just as much now as it was before.
You'll second that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Ms. Dr. Caldwell.
Mr. Sampson,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson,
Yes.
Mayor Witt.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna move to new business. There's no ordinances. We have resolution 8, number 8 is 2022-049. Mr. Carolina, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the appropriation of a grant to the Annie Maddox Recreation Center Incorporated, providing for improvements to the private park governed by the Annie Maddox Recreation Center Corporation, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date period.
And Fred, did you want to explain about 8 and, I think it's 11?
I can. 8 is an agreement with the Annie Maddox Recreation Center that encompasses the resurfacing of the tennis and basketball courts, as well as improving the lighting on those courts and installing and maintaining the city-owned camera system. If my office was tasked with bringing back another agreement, should the council and the Annie Maddox Recreation Center not agree as to all of those subjects. And item 11 is that agreement, which pertains to only the installation and maintenance of the city-owned camera system. The agreement that you have under item 8 has some revisions that the Annie Maddox Rec Center asked for, such as in section or paragraph 3B sub 2. So removal of level 2 background screenings on individuals or entities that are representing the corporation. 3B3 requires the execution of a deed for an easement, because the city will need an easement to install and then maintain the camera system. That easement would be only that portion of property needed for the camera system. Paragraph 6 is the removal of Chapter 119, also known as Public Records Act, and the imposition of those provisions on the corporation. And 8 is the change of ability of the city to erect a permanent sign to a sign for the duration of the project's construction. All other revisions that you see are those simply to formatting, or they pertain to the subject areas that I just described.
Okay. Mr. or Ms. Dodge, y'all want to speak?
I don't even know how to start this, man. I gotta need to ask a question. What Mr. Copeland just read as relates to number 8. If the city council rejects the resolution, that means that the basketball and tennis courts and the lighting of the courts would not take place?
Yes.
That's what it's saying?
Yes, sir. If we turn this on.
Okay, so how do we get, and the board is here, and I'm not on the board. And I know they volunteers, it's a non-profit organization. But I know how we got to this point, even talking about the improvement. And I guess I'm embarrassed and insulted to a certain degree that, you know, here I am being excited about the possibility of the basketball courts being repaved and lights out there and all of that. And there's no way around this. I mean, I read through, I know it's being stricken, the level 2 being stricken. But is there not a way to satisfy this board and accomplish what you want to accomplish without losing the opportunity to improve the community? Yes, it's an animal matters control board. Yes, it's privately owned. I get all of that.
Right.
But it benefits the public.
Right.
And at some point in time, you got to think about what's in the best interest of the public, even though it's privately owned. And it's insulting to even think that we'll walk away from that kind of improvement because we can't reach a conclusion, can't reach an agreement on what should be said about the level 2 background screening. Maybe you can make some exception in the level 2. I read it, and maybe you don't want to include the vendors. And I don't know what the motivation was. I know Mr. Sampson led the charge, and he can feel free to speak to it. But I think it's absolutely a mistake on behalf of the board to reject this and let that money go down the drain. And while the basketball courts out there is cracking up, ain't been resurfaced since I've been a child, and there's no lights, and I don't know no rationale for that. And maybe, I don't want to put people on the spot, but the president is here, the board members here, and maybe they can explain what about that they don't like it, then y'all can work out some kind of accommodation. But to walk away tonight after we done been out here raising hell about it, excuse my language, that's crazy.
We ain't voted yet.
Mr. Mayor, he mentioned me, can I comment on that?
Well, let me finish, Mr. Sampson.
Okay.
But you just said that if you agree with what's being stricken, then the basketball courts and the tennis court would not be paid. And the lights would not take place. I mean, Mr. Copeland will nod his head. So if that's the case, then that's what I'm opposed to. So, okay, then y'all vote then. Let's see how I go work out.
Mr. Mayor, he mentioned me, so I'd just like to make a comment about it. So it's a private organization, but the park is being used as a public park. I'm not in favor of a public park where children go to play having volunteers who have not had background checks. I'm not gonna be in favor of that in any way, shape, or form. We have to protect the children. Parents don't know who they're leaving their kids with when they're in the park. They assume that government's in place. If you look at a big city like Orlando, and they got tons of parks, and you look at their application, the first thing they're asking is about a background check. So if you want to remove that, for me, that could be a deal breaker, but what we need to do is find a way to get the deal done, because we need the basketball court and we need the tennis court. So I want to offer a solution. So my solution is I would make a motion to move forward with this agreement and reinstate the struck through parts for Section B, Part 2. I mean, I don't know why this is such a hard decision. I know that this organization in the past has had people on the board that may have had issues with the background. Maybe they could address why they want to remove that piece.
Second?
Mayor.
Wait, they might want to address it.
I don't know.
There's other people on the list.
Go ahead, ma'am.
LaWanda Austin, I'm the president of Animatics. It's not the fact that we want not to do it. We just don't want to, like vendors, how are we gonna do a background check on vendors? If we have vendors there and coming, how are we gonna do a background check and have time to have the results back? I mean, some of this, we have no problem with, but all of it, vendors, volunteers, at our discretion, I mean, we want to be at our discretion to do a background check if we feel the need.
I have a solution for that.
Okay.
So it's only for people that are representing you as the park. So it's a vendor that's representing you.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at that second level, that's why it's important to notate, because you can't control people that don't represent the park. So, and that's why maybe we had a little bit of confusion about that, because the only people affected by that would be anybody representing the park itself. That's correct. Because you have events. There's an event going on, I think we just approved tonight. And there's gonna be vendors there that's not representing the park. So it's up to those vendors to police what they're doing. So that was that. So I think that probably speaks to what you're talking about, the main issue. So so with that being the case, would you be okay with reinstating that, understanding what it says? And it's on the second line there, representing the grantee. Mm-hmm. So that would change it. So it's not anyone, it's not like someone, yeah, so let's say you lease out the building for funerals like you do. You can't have those people with background checks.
Right.
So it's only the people.
The representative.
Yes, yes. So I think if we were to put that language back in, I'll be for it.
Okay, Mr. Caroline, did you read it by title? I don't think we did.
I did read it by title,
Okay.
Mayor, and then you asked me to introduce it as to
I'm
what,
sorry.
as to what the two are speaking of. If you'd like, we can put the word directly representing in there.
That would be good.
Right,
Directly representing, would that be acceptable?
that would be.
Okay, so you're making the motion?
I'll make that motion.
I second it.
Been a motion and a second. Any further? Ms. Sykes, call the
I
roll,
would like
please.
to speak to that, Mayor, I would like to speak to this issue and everyone on your agenda tonight. I said that in my note. I'm in favor of taking care of kids. I'm in favor of improving the parks. I think this is a little difficult for the council to take direct action on now. You don't own the park, you don't have control over the park or the programming or what's going on there. And so I think it's important to look at what you can donate and give away. Like if you have asphalt or in-kind services that you can give to them, then by all means, give away those things. But when you're talking about easements and investing in camera systems that are gonna be networked with the city's network, you need to have unfettered access, unlimited access to those assets that are now on your intranet. You've got serious.
Mayor, I believe he's speaking to item 11.
Yeah.
So he might want to hold those comments until item 11 when we talk about the camera system separately.
Let me use my time to address the Animatics investment, which I have my own specific thoughts on. I support children and children's recreation, and I think you should invest in it. I think the city should maintain city-operated parks, the old Boys and Girls Club, or whatever other clubs, the scouting arenas that you had, the things that have basically fallen in disarray and gone dormant. You should provide recreation. But if this is a separate organization with a separate board of directors that you have no influence over, other than to write the occasional letter and say, please, by the way, give us permission to come and service our cameras, or please, by the way, follow our city charter and our rules, I don't think you've got any control over that. So let it be a private organization. I'm familiar in other locations where there are museums and ground. I know the clock is still running and I still have a minute, Mayor. But the thing is, I'm familiar with other organizations that have gardens like Hearthstone Gardens or other museum properties that serve the public, that get public grant money, but the thing is, they're following all the rules of that city's charter, and they do background checks on everything. They do have no felons serving on their boards. So I don't think you should go here and start making contracts with these people. Give them what you can give them for free, and let it go at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Ms. Sykes, you call the roll, please.
Mayor, may I just confirm the motion?
Okay.
The motion is to approve resolution 2022-049.
Yes.
But we are going to re-include back in, item 3B2 back into the contract. Is that correct?
And add the word between after or, it's right after or, directly representing.
Or entity directly? I do have that. And all the other strike-throughs are going to remain as strike-throughs in the document?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Jefferson, is that the way you understood that?
Yes, well,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to City Council Resolution 2022-055. Mr. Caroline, read that by title.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of the State Highway Lighting Maintenance and Compensation Agreement work order with the State of Florida Department of Transportation, providing for the terms and conditions of maintenance of the state facilities to be maintained by the city and establishing an effective date period.
Mr. Holcomb, did you want to speak to this?
Can anyone explain what property we're talking about? What are the assets that you're taking responsibility of maintaining away from the state? Or is this just another shell game where something's being decided and we don't know what it is? What is the asset that you're taking responsibility for?
It's the lighting agreement.
A lighting agreement for which, are you taking care of the road lights on the side of the road now?
Mr. Mayor,
It's the signals.
if you would read the resolution in the package, it clearly states what it is. I mean,
Is this the traffic maintenance of the lights downtown?
it's of all, if you read it, it's any state facilities that are to be maintained by the city within city limits.
So
You look at the first.
it's a simple question that you guys are much more informed than I am. Are we talking about the traffic light maintenance system for the traffic lights?
Yes,
All right, are there any additional signs or anything else being put in here?
it's the one we do every year, so.
There's no additional signage being installed like the sign that was proposed to be installed downtown. You're not doing that tonight, right? Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion as to City Council Resolution 2022-055?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution 2022-055.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay, City Council Resolution 2022-056. Mr. Carolina, read that by title.
A resolution of City Council of City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the city to join the state of Florida and other local government units in participating in the quote Walgreens settlement, end quote, providing for the mayor's execution of the participation agreement and providing for an effective date period.
Did you want to speak to that one? Okay. Is there a motion as to City Council Resolution 2022-056?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of resolution number 2022-056.
Second.
Got a motion on the second, any discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. We don't need item 11, so we move to 12, the City Council Resolution 2022-058.
It's included. I thought
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. We skipped over number 11.
Yeah, we didn't vote on 11.
I thought we didn't have to do 11.
We can't combine the two, those are two separate ones.
That's, actually, we did handle it. What I was trying to advise the council, and what I think I did advise them, is that number 11 is not needed if number 8 is voted upon. At a meeting prior to this council meeting, the council asked me if we could move forward on the camera installations and maintenance, subject if the council cannot agree on the other things.
That's covered in item 11 is covered in 8 since we passed it.
I just have one question. When you sent us the outline or the draft, it didn't say that we would have
We need
access
your
to
name,
it.
please.
What's your
Al Nelson, Al, Nelson, Nelson. I didn't read it in the email that it says that we being the Animatics board, will have access to the audio and or visual of those cameras. That's the only thing I didn't see in there once you sent it to me, we had talked about it. That's the only thing that we have a problem with, that we should be able to have access to the audio and or video if possible. The board should have.
Well, I think the council should hear Mr. Nelson's comments and then consider whether or not to reconsider item 8.
It's just a question, because you have access, we should be able to access if someone's renting or in our concession stand or rent our building.
problem, except like our IT and the law enforcement, people like that, if there's any reason why they
Mr.
would.
Smith, can I speak to this item, please? If you don't mind.
All citizens have access to the camera system through public records requests. So, I mean, anything that's recorded, it would go through a request to Audrey and they would have it all.
Yeah.
And that's any citizen.
Unless it's statutory exempt.
Right. Is that noted in the draft?
No, it's not, it's just the law, okay. Mr. Holroom, did you want to speak to that?
So I was correct to address the cameras and the access to government-owned equipment being placed on private property. So I want to reiterate that those cameras are inside your network. If you didn't know, I'm an IT professional among other credentials. So I want to point out that it should be under no circumstances that any access to the polls, to the network connections, to any part of your corporate network should be allowed on private property. And you should have unfettered access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that you can maintain a camera that gets damaged by others or by storm, and so that you can do proper maintenance and updates on the firmware of those cameras. You should not ever be in such a position that you're in a tug of war with a private entity over accessing government property that all of us are paying for. So please make sure that whatever agreement you just whisked through here, like the shell game that often happens here, make sure that that agreement does not allow any restrictions on you accessing government-owned property.
Okay, item 12, the city council resolution 2022-058.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I'm a former member of the board, and I can promise you that for the safety that we want in that community, we want you to have all the damn access to the cameras you can get. Okay. And that's a fact. And I think anybody in the community can speak to that. So people push the fence down and let y'all get there and get the cameras to get us what we need to make sure that the community stays safe.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Carolina, would you read City Council Resolution 2022-058?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding with the Institute for Justice Research and Development at Florida State University and Meridian Behavioral Health, providing for researching of methods to reduce repeated interactions between law enforcement and individuals who have severe mental health and substance abuse disorders, and to identify ways to optimize the use of crisis stabilization units and post-discharge supports, period.
Okay, is there a motion on City Council Resolution 2022-058?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution 2022-058.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Ox, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay. Next is discussion possible action designation of Florida League of Cities voting delegate. That's in August. Jake, you going to that? Anybody else going?
I'm going.
Okay. Eugene, you going?
No.
Okay. Between the two of y'all, which one wants to be the delegate?
I think Jake wants to.
All right, he's good at it.
You didn't move quick enough.
If y'all agree, I'll appoint Jake as our delegate. He has been the last few years. The last is discussion possible action Northeast Florida League of Cities Board of Directors that allow member cities that opportunity to submit one or more applications for nonprofit agency or to receive donations from the Northeast Florida League of Cities. Mr. Hill.
Last year, we, the board, donated to, Ms. Tamez Ruiz. This year, we missed that window, of making appointing, 501c3, applicant. So, as of, I think it was June 1 was the deadline. So next year, we will have to apply for this grant money. So, but we missed the window this year.
Okay. All right. No department administration. I do wanna make a note that there is a public safety memorial tomorrow night, Tuesday, June 7th at 6:30. It's been advertised at the Fellowship Hall of First Baptist, but it will be in the sanctuary, is that correct, Ms. Sykes?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be tomorrow night. We ask everybody to try to be there. The other thing I was asked to bring up is we need a workshop for some items that Mr. Dow wants to deal with. The care fund, the budget guidance on City Hall. Is everybody good with a workshop next Monday night for a little while at 6 o'clock?
Next Monday?
Yeah,
Next week?
I figure since it's a Monday night, we meet anyway usually. Is that good, Mr. Dow?
What time?
6 o'clock.
6?
Yeah.
Well, get us started, Dave. Okay, we'll do a workshop at 6 o'clock next Monday night, and with that, comments of council.
Mr. Mayor, the last meeting, we talked about the pier project and, you know, doing the fence, doing the gate, doing the other items that the city had on the list and getting together a memo of understanding for how this was gonna come together. I would recommend that should be something that be put together by the sponsor of the project. So the state sponsored, I would think Mr. Wynn will put that together and try to bring all these pieces in, because I was out at the lake this morning in the park, and, you know, there's trash all over. So if he wanted to go ahead and start getting some of that extra cleanup down in the water, I'd be all for it, because it's pretty bad. But I think we need to bring that back, because they're gonna run out of time to actually get that money. So I'd say at the next meeting, we need to have that tied up.
Okay, anything else?
Yes, Mayor. Procurement asked that the council consider whether or not you want, as to the RFP for legal services that will be advertised shortly. Does the council wish to interview applicants? If so, how many? For example, in 2016, you interviewed the top 3. If you do want to have interviews, do you want those closed or open to the public? Currently, the RFP has been revised from 2016 to leave you the option to do interviews, but procurement would like to know whether or not you want to effect that option.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see open interviews, and I think, I don't know, top 3 sounds good to me. But I think open interviews is a good way to go, and then we can, you know, everything said can be out in the open, and we'll be transparent.
We did them closed last time, but we could do it open, that really matters to me. All right, we'll do that.
As far as the front, do they need to know how many people to serve on the panel, or did you work that out today already?
I do not need to know that. I assume that it was going to be handled like it was in the past. Mayor, I suppose you should give procurement clear guidance. They've asked whether or not you want to have an evaluation committee, or I guess you all can make up the evaluation committee yourselves. That's how it was done in 2016.
You wanna do it ourselves?
I think so.
I think so too. All right. That'll be us, and it'll be open, and we'll do interviews, top 3. All right?
Mayor,
Yeah.
tonight you were served with a lawsuit by Ms. Coker. It names, I think, 26 individuals, and I didn't make it through it. It's, I think in total 90-something pages. 2 other lawsuits were filed by Ms. Coker. Each one was dismissed or amended by her voluntarily. This one states that those 26 actors acted in a conspiracy against her. As to the other actors or defendants named, I don't think the council should concern itself at this time, but the council has been served with it effective today, and so you have a short window of time to respond. So we will need to have a litigation session in the near future. We'll,
Gonna do it next Monday at 6 when we start, and then go to the other.
we'll work to schedule a litigation session based on advertising as well as court reporters, availability.
All right, I think that covers everything. We'll see y'all next week.